her figuring that out. There's some misadventures along the way. I felt such in the mood to read it at that time, spin off of like the main plot of the story. You guys, the guy that she was married to before has his own lore as well. The world building is absolutely unique, dreary. I got off a really long reading slump, so this really got me back into reading. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and it is time for a January reading wrap up. So better late than never, I guess, right? It was like literally the second week of February, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick video just talking about all the books that I wrapped up and read during the month of January. I mean, like, to be honest, there are not a lot of books that I read in January. I'm this year, and this is kind of like a reading goal slash resolution for myself, but I want to make sure that I want to read more quality books than quantity amount of books. So every month I'm going to read books that I actually do want to read, and not too many books a month. I'm not going to read like 6 books a month, 5 books a month. I think I'm going to keep it pretty simple, pretty small, so I can actually start remembering what I'm reading. Because sometimes when I read a lot or read so many books, I feel like I forget what I read, especially if it's a lot of books in a short period of time. Things and like memories start mixing up together, and I just feel like I can't tell you the intricate details of what really wowed me about this book maybe a week later after I read it. So I think this year I want to slow down with my reading and read a book, read books every month that actually speak to me, and it's actually a smaller quantity and is quality, and I can actually tell you what I loved about it and tell you what I kind of liked about it, and actually am excited to talk about it. It feels like I'm not just filling everything up with tropes or filling everything up with descriptions that feel very vague but not that exciting, if that makes any sense. It's kind of what I'm trying to say here with my reading journey in 2026. We're gonna get started. Sorry if you are annoyed about my bangs. I don't know why I'm apologizing. I'm annoyed about my bangs. Actually, I'm filming right next to a mirror and I'm seeing them like, oh, they're gonna fall over my face in this video. That's gonna be really, really fun. So ignore that, but let's get started. So the first book I read, basically the first week of January, was Spectacular. And if you don't know what this is a novella from the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. And I've read the Caraval series last year along with the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I actually read Once Upon a Broken Heart first, and then the Caraval series after Once Upon a Broken Heart, because I loved Once Upon a Broken Heart. I keep on saying that, like Once Upon a Broken Heart so much that I really wanted to like expand on the characters, and there was like some cameos from the characters in that series to the Caraval series. So I that's why I kind of made me want to read the Caraval series. But here's the thing, I loved it too. I actually loved it just as much as the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. So I was like, okay, I think it's time to get the novella, which is actually a holiday Christmas novella. I did mention I wanted to get this in my video talking about all the Christmas books I want to get for this year, or last year I guess. But yeah, this is the book I was talking about, and I actually read it pretty late. I did not read it during the Christmas season, but I did read it in the January month. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here. It's kind of like a very short story. I think it has like 100 something pages. Yeah, like 200 pages. 200 pages at best. Basically about the perspective of Donatella, the youngest sister from the Caraval series. I mean, we both know the sisters. If you haven't read it before, there are 2 sisters, Scarlett and Donatella. Donatella's the youngest and Scarlett is the oldest. The first book, Caraval, is actually more on Scarlett's perspective, and the second book, which is Legendary, and it takes place in Donatella's perspective. I did prefer Caraval more than Legendary. The finale kind of takes place with both perspectives mixed together. Mostly it's still Donatella's, but like Scarlett was there too, of course. And this book is also mostly in Donatella's perspective, probably because her relationship with Legend's a little bit more interesting because it's still kind of forming into something. So it was just kind of her perspective and her figuring out what to give Legend for Christmas. The holiday, I don't think they even said Christmas actually in this book. So for the holidays, what to give Legend for the holidays. That's basically the whole premise of the story. Her figuring that out. There's some misadventures along the way. There's a bit of a mystery in it. Tiny bit of a mystery. It's not crazy much of a plot twist, but it is a mystery in general. And yeah, that was basically the whole premise of the book. And it was very interesting. Again, I finished it all in one sitting, so it was really a quick read, but I really wanted to read it for the holidays, but also just like the first week of January, because I feel like that's a perfect time, to be honest with you. It's the middle of winter. I felt such in the mood to read it at that time because, I mean, I'm a seasonal reader, so I read a lot seasonally, so the first week of January was the perfect time for me to pick up this book or novella and read it. So I highly recommend, if you really want to read a book that's very seasonal, wintry, holiday-ish, this is a great book to pick up. But I would say pick this up if you have read the Caravel series. Pick this up. You don't have to read Once Upon a Broken Heart, but like at least read the Caravel series to really kind of know what's going on here. So since it is like a spin-off of like the main plot of the story from the other books. I did hear that Stephanie Garber is coming out with a novella for Once Upon a Broken Heart in September, I think. I'm beyond excited. Like, I have so many books I'm gonna read in September, October, but for some reason around that fall time, it's like the best reading spot right now for everybody. That spring, summer, fall is like the best time to read in my opinion. I feel like my reading list goes way higher and I have so many more fun books that I'm gonna read. So I don't know, for some reason I just love those months, those seasons of reading. So I'm so excited to get the novella, and I of course will be telling you about it when I finish the book. So that's rest assured there will be a video. Okay, next is The Wedding Girl. Now I got this book actually as a birthday gift from my sister. She gave it to me in her local library. So not a lot of you guys may have heard of this book, especially considering I don't even know if anybody has really heard of the author because it is a pen name. I don't know. But I read this completely blind. You know, I read this because it was just sitting on my bookshelf and I wanted to get something to read that was like modern and interesting. And I love weddings. I love books taking place in weddings and stuff like that. Again, in my video when I was talking about my winter Christmas novels I wanted to buy, I did have a book that was taking place around the winter time. And it was a wedding, in Lake Wisteria, I think. Yeah, I still want to get that book if I have the time, or maybe next time it's in the winter time and I'm feeling those like winter vibes. I love weddings in any season. I love wedding books and preparing for those weddings. I love it in movies too. I would love to even do some movie recommendations when it comes to seasons too. So if you want that, let me know. But that is kind of the vibe that I love. I love weddings. So I was like, okay, The Wedding Girl, interesting. I'm gonna pick it up. This was not what I was expecting at all. I was expecting a very slice of life romance, wedding sort of situation, maybe some drama, but pretty chill drama, like not even chill, just, yeah, I was expecting drama because that's what makes a book interesting in like a modern romance setting. It's not even a romance, to be honest with you. I can't even say it's a romance where there are two people who are building up this yearning together and get together at the end. The two main characters were already together to begin with. It was just kind of their journeys of the relationship fluctuating up and down. But without giving too much of the book, because you guys, it is literally like a reality show. I was like whipping my head left, right, and center, like what is going on? What is going on? Like truly, I was like, this is not what I expected. Okay, let me give it to you. I'm trying to not give these spoilers because the plot twists in this book, I mean, my sister's in high school. She got this in her high school library. Apparently they were trying to give away some books and this just was there. The high schoolers got it good, I have to say. Like this is very entertaining. This was like collecting dust on a high school library shelf, and I'm like, yo, there is actual drama. Like it's crazy. Okay, let me tell you what it's about. It's about this girl named Millie, and she's actually getting married. And she's getting married to a very high-acclaimed, accomplished guy from a very good family. His father is a very successful business owner, and he's a multi-millionaire. So Millie is getting married to someone who is obviously coming from wealth, and that's just kind of her situation with that, right? Now, the guy that she's getting married to does not have a good relationship with his father, and we see that relationship dynamic kind of like bloom and become a thing, to see like the hardships and the terror and all that fear in that relationship kind of come out to light. Now, Millie has a past. She was already married before. To somebody completely different, and now she has to figure out how to settle that out a day before her wedding. She has been married to this other guy, years before she met this guy. So it's not like she was cheating or anything. It's just that she kind of forgotten that she was married before. And now she realizes that somebody that took her photo from that fake wedding found out. And then she realized that, oh boy, she's in trouble. She needs to figure it out. a day before the wedding. So that's basically how it goes down. I'm not going to give you any more than that because it is very interesting. I don't want to spoil anything, but that is basically the premise of the story. You will be on your toes. It's very much a mystery because everybody has some lore that you will figure out at the end of the book why they have that lore, if that makes any sense. Like, she has a sister, she has her own lore. The mom and dad, they have their own lore. Dad from the fiance has his own lore that may be connected to another character. And the guy has his own lore too. Everybody has a story that you'll be very interested in. The guy that she was married to before has his own lore as well. So again, everybody has their own story that's very interesting, very captivating and compelling. I highly recommend you pick this up if you love modern dramas. This is basically a drama. If anything, a soap opera at this point. Pick this up if you can. Definitely pick it up if you haven't already. This is a very dramatic book, but it kept me on my toes the whole time. So that was a very unexpected but very interesting read, I have to say. I did read this book, but I read it last year. But I want to recommend it to you because it's a very wintry book, and I think that if you're really interested in seasonally reading, that I think you'll really like this one. So I'll show you. It's called A Winter's Promise, and you've probably heard of it before if you haven't already. A Winter's Promise is a very good, I would say, fantasy series. It's all the series, but it's a fantasy novel, and it takes place kind of like a historical fantasy romance. It is a romance. I would say it's a romance, even though there's no romance happening in this book, but the genre is romance. But the romance happens the more you read through the series. But I kind of kept this as a standalone for myself, just because I feel like it's good as much as a standalone as coming into a different, it depends how you want to continue the story, but this is a standalone. I feel like this could be a fine standalone, unless you want to read more about the story. And if you're a genuine fan of it, I think you can enjoy this as a standalone as well. I did enjoy it as a standalone. And basically it's about this girl named Ophelia. She was a librarian in her, I would say, own hometown. The world building's very interesting here. And her parents basically betrothed her to this guy from a different empire, so she had to move to marry him. But this empire is very different from her hometown because everybody's very vicious in this new empire, so she kind of has to move through the mud with kind of settling down there. People are very vicious again, so they can't really know that she is marrying the ruler of that empire. So the way they hide her is very interesting, but also very traumatic, not gonna lie, for her. But I like it because the world building is absolutely unique. I can't explain it because, I mean, it's like, I don't even know how to like compare it to. It's like the Nutcracker, but a little bit more dystopian than the Nutcracker world, if that makes any sense. Like, if you're in the Nutcracker, if you ever seen Nutcracker, it's kind of like that world, but a little bit more dreary and, you know, gray. That's kind of how I see it, though. It's subjective with your own mind, but that's how I see it. But it's like dreary and gray, but it's like very fantasy and very whimsical. But if whimsy was like also dark with the gothic, Swan Lake's world with Nutcracker's world, but very gothic, if that makes any sense. Very dark and snowy and it's gloomy. I think it's the perfect thing to read during the winter time. I loved it. Last year when I read this, I got off a really long reading slump, so this really got me back into reading. I read it while listening to some classical music. It was very gloomy outside where I was living, so it was just so nice. It was so nice to read this. Now, in the book it says the mirror visitor, and that's for a thing. They actually travel through mirrors. I think the girl has mirror powers or something like that. So there is powers in this universe, which is really cool. So if you're into that, this might be for you. So yeah, I think that's something I want to recommend to you, even though I didn't read it this month. I did read it last year, the same month, and I think it's a perfect winter story for you guys to read. And again, if you really like this story and if you want to continue, there are other books in the series for you to get into, but I wouldn't mind this again as a standalone. I read it as a standalone and I still enjoyed it, so that is it for that. That is it for my January reading wrap up. I can't wait to do February. I'm already finished Beg, Borrow, or Steal, which in my vlog I did talk about reading. Can't wait to read Glow of the Everflame. I'm also reading that one too, so I'm excited for that too. I have so many books that I'm so excited to read during this year or in this year or whatever. I think that it's going to be so exciting for us readers to kind of just talk about it. I could talk about books for hours. I loved all of these books. So if you're ever interested in reading anything that I put in today's video, just check it out. Of course, if you may like it. I would honestly, from all three that I read, I think I would definitely recommend The Wedding Girl, to be honest. If you're into modern stories, definitely The Wedding Girl. But if you are already a Caraval fan, you liked Caraval, if you liked Caraval and you are contemplating, should I get the novella, should I not? I think you should most definitely get the novella as well. Oh, and also Winter's Promise. But Wedding Girl, you guys, I think you'll probably really like it. If you're into the soap opera kind of vibe, like drama sort of situation, I'd recommend The Wedding Girl. But if you're into like the dreary dystopian fantasy, then A Winter's Promise could be for you. So it really just depends on what tickles your fancy, but that's kind of what I'm thinking that you may like. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, because I did. Again, I could talk about books for hours, but I don't want to make this video too long. But that's my January reading wrap up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!